Hello and welcome. I'm Julia Smuts Louw, and no doubt this podcast finds you in the midst of self-isolation and looking for some distraction from the fridge. Well, we're happy to oblige. This month I'm talking to Jasmine Katatikarn, a Senior Lighting Technical Director at Sky Studios, makers of Ice Age Rio and Spies in Disguise. Along with her colleague Mike Tanzillo, Jasmine also runs the Academy of Animated Arts, an online school specializing in the subtle art of lighting for animation feature. We talked to her about that, as well as other subtle arts acquired over her distinguished career, including the art of salary negotiation, something we'd all like to be better at if we're ever allowed to go back to work.
Technically, we're supposed to be working remotely, but there's like the hardware, it's all these systems that we don't have in place right now because it's an animation studio. It's not just like take a laptop and go. There's all these pipelines and whatnot. So right now we're doing training. We're doing a lot of Houdini training anyway because we were going to we're changing things around. But yeah, I mean, we're kind of expected to be available during this time, and we're going to be giving out like a small amount of work, but I mean, luckily we're not in production. So if we were like in a crunch for production, this would be a lot more.
Yeah, that would be disastrous. And anybody who's got a film actually in the theater, I feel pretty sorry for them.
Yeah, but I mean, we're just rolling with it and see how it goes and just staying safe and trying not to, spread anything.
The one thing that I think's been quite heartening is it's amazing how quickly the whole world has just changed how they do absolutely everything because of a perceived threat. And I just wish that the same kind of logic would be applied to climate change.
Unfortunately, like by the time it's like urgent for climate change, it's going to be too late.
Exactly.
It's like this. They'll be like, oh no. And I was like, yeah, you should have been thinking about this like 20 years ago.
In case it's not obvious to future listeners for posterity, we're talking about living and working in the middle of coronavirus epidemic. So my guest is Jasmine Katatikarn, and we are actually talking about lighting and her school that she runs with Mike Tanzillo. And I'm really, really excited to be talking to you today because not only is the first time I've had a guest to talk about lighting, but you're actually the first woman I've had on this show, believe it or not.
Oh, really?
It's not for lack of trying, it just hasn't worked out with people I have lined up.
Well, thank you. Yeah. Now I feel a little bit more pressure. Thank you for having me, and I'm honored to be here. And I mean, as you probably know, that this industry is male-dominated, so I'm not that surprised, I guess. But yeah, I am honored to be the first female guest.
Yeah, well, a lot of people who I did line up had to cancel due to kid commitments, so that also goes to show one of the sort of endemic problems, which is trying to balance the two, as I think I can hear you trying to do right now. But
I know, I apologize.
No, don't apologize.
Here, I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah, I've got a 2-year-old and a sick husband at home, so I'm likely to also have some sound effects at some point. Yeah. So just to back up a little bit, we heard first from Tina Lee, who said that they've been following the podcast and that you guys would love to chat to us about your school. And education is always a great topic because everybody's had some form of one, and there's a lot to be learned from people who are working in the industry at the moment and who are tackling education at the same time. I think that the more of that can be done, the better for the industry, because people who just are working in education tend to fall out of the loop quite quickly as to what the industry actually needs. Maybe also to begin about your background, you had, like a lot of people I've spoken to, seem to have had a really interesting path into animation via Godiva Chocolatiers and an economics degree at Vassar. So maybe just tell us a little bit about your path in a nutshell.
Of course. So yeah, I went to undergrad at Vassar College, and I have a degree in economics, which, is the very clear path to animation is to get a degree in economics. And the reason why I got a degree in economics is because when I was younger, I was kind of taught in my head that, and I will say I was always drawn to the arts, but my mom specifically would be like, you can never get you won't survive if you're an artist. You have to be practical and whatnot. So in my head, I chose economics because I thought it would give me technically the good life,
Right.
And I was I spent 4 years with an econ degree. I was literally going to investment banking interviews. And
Oh, wow.
I still remember this in New York City, right after graduation or that spring semester, like 5 in a row. And they kept, it's an interview. They'd ask you, like, why do you want to be in finance? Why do you want to be in investment banking? And I had my kind of BS answer already for them. And after, like, there's this one interview I remember, and it was an hour-long interview, and I did it. And then I left, and I was like, I cannot do this. Like, if this is my life, it's going to be miserable. And that's the moment when I was like, I stopped trying to get into finance. And of course, I think my parents like freaked out on me. And that summer, I was like, I'm just going to take some classes in design and art, the thing that I'm actually passionate about. And while I was taking those courses, it was very basic, like Photoshop, Illustrator, wasn't 3D at all. And my instructor that was teaching me, since I was picking it up so quickly, he's like, that guy, he was actually a 3D guy. And he was like, let me show you this. I think it was like 3D Studio Max at the time. He's like, let me show you this. And I had never seen anything like it. And I was like, that is what I want to do. And that's like my first sneak peek at 3D. And what I did was I took the 2D stuff when I got my job at Godiva as a junior package designer. I still don't know how I got that job with an econ degree, and just like I put up a portfolio. I like made a portfolio that summer, and that was great. I worked at Godiva for about.
So was it an
a year or
animation
two.
portfolio? It wasn't a design portfolio.
It was. I mean, like I look back on it and I cringe. I'm just like, I don't even know. It wasn't that good, I thought, but. It was probably straight out of college. I wasn't asking for a lot of money. I was just getting my foot in the door. But it led me to, after getting that experience, I wanted to really dive back into 3D because that I started getting really passionate about. I tried to learn it on my own while working full time, and I was like not quite getting there. And then I realized, like at that time, I'm dating myself. Probably like 18 years ago or so,
Right.
Almost 20 years ago. And there wasn't that much out there. So I actually ended up going to get my master's in it while working full-time at NYU.
Oh,
and
wow. So you went straight for the...
traditionally learned, yeah.
For the academic end.
Traditionally learned 3D. But that being said, like I spent 2 years in grad school, really expensive, and I was all ready, and I hustled, and eventually that's how I did get work doing first commercials and visual effects in New York City at the post houses, where I worked for I want to say like 5 or 6 years before going to Blue Sky
So that
Studios,
was
where
the Mill and Rhino FX and Frames Tour.
yeah.
Did you move around
like,
quite
I
a lot
had
if that
great
was just 5 years?
experiences. And yeah, some like at Rhino FX, I was there for 5 years, and then I went to Blue Sky as a temp lighter, actually, to work on Ice Age 4, I think now. I forget which one it is. And then I came back to the city, and that's when I worked at the Frame Store and the Mill for well over like a year or two. And I loved it there, a very different environment. And then I decided to go back to Blue Sky. They offered me a full-time position, and that's when I decided I had to make that choice between feature animated versus, commercial and VFX. And that's where I decided to do Blue Sky for various reasons. And I've been here for almost 10 years.
Wow.
It's crazy to say. So yeah, if you're doing the math in your head, I'm like 25 years old. So that's like how I came about my career. And it was not a very straight path, but I would not do it any other way. It was amazing, and it taught me like to just pursue what I really love to do.
At what points did your parents decide that you were right and that it could be a career, or are they still sort of not sure?
No, they're very happy. They're very happy about it. They're very proud. I think it was after grad school. They supported me. Like when I was in grad school, they definitely supported my decision. But I think they were truly happy when, after grad school, I got my first official job in 3D animation, and the salary was like, I still remember my dad being like, my dad's a doctor, and he was
Mine
like,
too.
really? And he was like so proud. He's just like, that's amazing. And then I think like from then on, they're like, oh, okay, you can actually have a really good career as an artist. So that dissolved, yeah, and they're very proud of me now.
That's good. Because I think investment banking has the highest entry-level salaries of any profession, so
I know.
depending on their
The
priorities.
job as a junior package designer, which is probably like not, it's like probably the lowest end entry level, so, you know, but it all works out in the end.
And then,
Yeah.
so at some point, you and your colleague, Mike Tanzillo, decided to found the Academy of Animated Art, which was in 2015. What made you decide to start a school? And is it affiliated with Blue Sky at all? I wasn't 100% sure about that.
Yeah, so it is not affiliated with Blue Sky at all. It's a completely separate entity. We do have permission from Blue Sky to do it, just because full disclosure, but it's a completely separate thing. I'll make that clear. And the reason why, so I had never, anticipated like starting a school. I had taught at different schools every now and then within New York City, but in my mind I was like, oh, I'm an artist. I'm not focused on being a teacher. But what happened was, and we both went on separate recruiting trips. So I started going on recruiting trips for Blue Sky to colleges. We traveled. I went to SCAD. I went to Ohio, and I was looking at demo reels of students and giving them feedback with the head recruiter at Blue Sky. And I realized as I kept giving feedback and talking to students that students, especially for lighting, they're focusing on the wrong thing and they're not being taught the right things. And this kind of goes back to what you were saying, how in most traditional schools, they're taught by wonderful people, but they're also taught by instructors that have probably been out of the industry for many years. Or some instructors have never been in the industry. Some instructors go straight or just, all academic. So there's like this hole. And what I also realized while I was talking to them is like, oh my God, I made these same mistakes too. I was like, this was me in grad school. I spent all this money and I did the same exact things that they're doing. And I had no clue. And I didn't know until working in the industry exactly. Like I basically learned lighting on the job, the way lighting should be. And I was never taught properly in school. And what happened was Mike was also going on recruiting trips separate from me. And one day we were just talking about it and we're like, yeah, isn't it? And he had the same experiences. And I was like, isn't it shocking that all these years there's no education to how to really be a good lighter, or, they're focusing too much on the software and everything. And then we just looked at each other and we're like, why don't we create the resource that we wish we had to help these people get into the industry? Because we could tell, people are so passionate. They want to get in the industry, but they're just focusing on the wrong things. And there's no venue for them to go. So that's how we started Academy of Animated Art. We're like, we're going to be the venue and we're going to teach it exactly how we wish we had it, and teach them the right things.
Amazing. So
they get that job. Yeah.
So what would you say are the main kind of gaps? I mean, the one that came up now is the fact that it's quite software focused, and of course, as you were saying on your website, software moves on. A lot of studios have proprietary software anyway, so you're going to have to learn that once you get there, and so there should be more focus on developing an artistic eye and an artistic sensibility. So is that one of the main gaps, and are there some others that kind of form the pillars of what you wanted to do differently?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely by far the number one mistake people are making is everyone's focusing on the software, which buttons to push, what technique is out there. I feel like people think that what makes these great animated films or these looks is they must have some magic button out there that does it for them, And that's the first question we almost always get from students. It's like, what software should I be using? What software should I be learning? And we're very adamant in saying that the software doesn't matter, because the software is just a tool like anything else. It's like a paintbrush for a painter, because that painter is using the best paintbrush doesn't mean that painter is going to produce this amazing artwork. That artist needs to know the foundations and what makes a great piece of art. And in this case, it's lighting. What makes a great shot? So we're very focused on, software is a tool, so we do use software, but we teach our students first and foremost the fundamentals, like what actually makes a good image, what should you be striving for, and then we use the tool as a secondary thing. Like, okay, everything we teach, you can use it in any software available. So that's why we're very free about, like, when the first question comes and the student's like, what software do I need? I was like, you can use anything you want and we will work with you with that, because we know it's not the main focus. And I did the same thing when I was in grad school, when I was just learning every single button and what each button did, instead of actually learning what would make a good image. And that's the main mistake. The other mistake is trying to learn everything, feeling that you need to know everything. And this is in life too, probably, right? Like everyone's trying to multitask and do everything, but to focus on maybe just the specific things that you would need to know to, let's say, get you that job in lighting. You can focus all your attention on that instead of kind of focusing on things that may not get you to that point. So we help people kind of hone in and focus on what they need to know to succeed. And then the other thing that I find that holds students back is just the self-confidence, right? It's hard starting out, and you might think you're not good enough yet or whatnot, but lighting, like anything, is a skill, and it's a skill that can be learned. And if you learn it the right way, you'll succeed. So I think that would be my other thing that I often see is people get a little down about their work, and it's sensitive. It's artwork, right? So, yeah. But if you teach things a certain way, give small wins, it's a very manageable and successful way of teaching and succeeding. I love it when I get messages from students that they've gotten their jobs and whatnot. And it's amazing. It makes all the hard work and all the extra hours at night worth it.
Totally. So I've often heard from seniors at studios that they have to get through a phase with interns or juniors where they're still very they're marrying their identity to their work, and it takes quite a while to get through that phase where you're very, very despondent if you get bad feedback of any kind, because there's just basically they're quite thin-skinned and they haven't yet learned that just because they've done something that they could do better doesn't mean that they're a bad person or a bad artist. It sounds like, is that something that you also focus on? It's sort of the soft skill of learning to get some distance from your work.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually our kind of super ingredient that we have with our program is we give professional feedback, and that's exactly how we do in the studio. And you're right. You have to learn not to take it personally, but also realize that's how you get better and that's how you grow. Yeah. And it never stops. And so that's what we do exactly for our students. We have they post their work, they will get feedback just the same way as an animation studio will give you feedback. Within 24 hours we'll give them feedback, and then they'll go back and iterate and do it again, and it doesn't stop until they have this amazing visual for their demo reel. And that's how they're growing. I
really like the tip on your site about putting a lot more weight into personal projects than big budget film work you've done. Because firstly, you then know that it's stuff that's been inspired and totally controlled by the person who's actually applying for the job. And also because it shows that you have enough interest in what you're doing to set aside personal time to work on it.
Yeah.
Do you have some others, maybe beyond what was there on the website? I don't know if you have some little insights for our listeners.
Yeah. I will say, since we did speak about, what not to focus on, which is, the software and whatnot, I'll touch upon what a lighter should focus on if you want to be a lighter. So instead of the software, we kind of call it the 3 Whys of lighting. And that's what we really like to instill in people. Like, why are you lighting? Before you light a shot, think about it. So the 3 whys of lighting would be, one, lighting is all about emphasizing the story and the mood. So just like any other part of the pipeline, like animators or layout or camera, the whole goal that we're coming together as one is to tell the story, right? So the lighting job is to help emphasize the story through mood, and this goes through color and light. And when I say color, it's like little discrete things like the use of cool colors versus warm colors. And I kind of like to call it like the invisible art in a way, because a viewer, if you do it right, they just feel the mood within the lighting, like that, just unconsciously as they're watching it. So that's one of the biggest things when you're lighting, is you want to know what kind of mood you're trying to portray. Where is this in the story, and how can you help emphasize the story? And the other thing that lighting really does is direct the viewer's eye. We have a lot of power in focusing where the viewer is going to look, right? Like the animator could spend days, weeks on this perfect animation, but if we put that character in darkness, then it's like it's all for nothing, right? So our goal is, especially when the shot's up for only like 30 frames or something really quick, we want to make sure the viewer is looking where they're supposed to be looking and focusing. So that's a part of the art form, right? Like kind of directing the viewer's eye. If we light a background character really brightly, that's going to be really distracting to the viewer, and they don't realize it, but they'll miss the point of that shot if we're not lighting it correctly. So the other tip would be, always think about where you want the viewer's eye to go and light for that. And then, of course, the other thing that we emphasize while lighting is sculpting the visual shaping of, it could be, the character or just the environment. And we want, even if it seems subtle, we always want to create some kind of shaping so it's not flat and it's engaging. So those are like the 3 main whys of lighting and how we approach lighting. So this is how, when you come to us, we'll start teaching you these methods instead of saying, open up this software and go through each button. Because I've been in those classes where they're just like these tutorials or these courses, and I'm just like falling asleep in the background. So this is a lot more fun to learn it this way. And then once we learn the foundations, then you apply it to whatever software that you're using. And I will say another thing that we do, and this is also directly related to what we wish we had, is we provide assets for all our students. And these are fully modeled and textured assets, and some of them are even animated, ready for you to light. So you can just go right in there and start lighting, instead of, I still remember like taking my, like I'd be like ready to light, I'm like, I want to learn lighting, but then I'd spend like weeks modeling and texturing and animating sometimes, and then by the time it came to lighting, I like ran out of time. So we didn't want our students to go through that, so we have like a full library of assets for them ready to go, so they can just start lighting and focusing on lighting right away.
I really like the idea of the invisible art form. That could be said of a few different aspects of animation. That's like, I think animation itself can also sometimes be invisible to laymen if it's done nicely. But it kind of makes me wonder, what personality type do you think is ideal for lighting? Because you have to be sort of content to be that person who might not be recognized by 90% of the audience who goes to see his or her work.
It's funny that you say that, because not that there's a specific personality for lighters, but you can definitely, if you wanted to just do a broad, the lighters, and I say this from experience, lighters tend to be more quiet and reserved, and definitely don't want to be that person that's out on stage. So like our lighting department meetings are like the quietest meetings I've ever been in, where like we joke that the animators are like super rambunctious, like they're extroverts. So I would say like
it's so true
in general, like animators are like super extroverted, And then lighters are definitely more the introverts. They're like, they don't want to speak up. They're very happy to just like be working in their, their little space and just creating art. And they're okay about not being acknowledged. Like when you said that, I was like, oh, they're totally fine being in the background, like not being like on stage. I actually had to do, because I think I'm an exception in lighting where I'm a little bit of an extra. Actually, my husband told me that I'm an introvert that learned how to be an extrovert, which is kind of true. But and that might have to do with the female in the industry, and we'll get to that.
Okay.
But I will say, like, lighters can tend to be so shy that I once had to do an interview for some kind of media thing because no one else in my department wanted to do it. Like the leads didn't want to do it. Even the supervisor was like, I don't really want to do it because we're so introverted. So if I had to do, obviously there's exceptions and this is just a broad like thing, I would say that lighters tend to be more introverted. And I will say between like also visually, and I think this holds true. Someone once told me this. If you go to a movie and you're focused, whatever you're focused on, if you're focused on the performance and like that's what inspires you, like the performance of the actor or whatever, or if you're more focused on the visual look of the film, like the colors, there's just beautiful or whatnot. If you're focused on the actor's performance, you're meant to be an animator. If your takeaway is more about the overall look of the film, you're meant to be more of a lighter.
Right.
And when that person said that, I was like, that's totally me. I just look at the look, and for me, the performance is just secondary. So I thought that was a good way to kind of gauge also maybe where you would fall on that spectrum.
What are some misconceptions about what you do? Maybe not only what your mom thinks you do, but what other departments should appreciate about your department that people just don't get. Maybe because you're all introverts, you find it hard to speak up about these things, so this is your chance.
That's a good question. I guess most people that work in the industry know what lighting is, but maybe not. So I would say the biggest thing is how lighting contributes to the art of storytelling, right?
Yeah.
Because I feel like people might just see lighting like, oh, they just make it look pretty, or they're just doing, there's no like direct thing that we're looking to do, but really with every single shot, we're looking on how can we best tell the story. Like people might think storytelling is only for the animators or for the story artists or but storytelling is very key in lighting. And if we don't get that right, it will translate through the movie if we don't hit the story points. So I think that's something that people don't realize how much lighting has an effect on the story.
So with that in mind, do you use like for inspiration or for kind of teaching your students what to look for, do you point them to other TDs and to cinematographers or to artists? Like would you include old masters or like modern Instagram artists?
Yeah. I mean, really, you can get inspiration from all those aspects, all those people, right? We start with the traditional. We're very keen on Rembrandt. We start with kind of the Rembrandt lighting model, the old school, and then we will touch upon, more modern things from, you're right, all venues too, like cinematography versus like photography. There's photographers are great with lighting. And so we go from everything.
And do most of your students who come to you, considering you've set the course up in such a way that everything else is kind of taken care of so that you can focus on lighting, does that suggest that they've been through a path already and they know that's what they want to do? Do they mostly come to you after having done a little bit of professional work in the field or a previous degree, or are some of them just making a complete left turn in what they're doing and they're just like, lighting, that's for me?
Well, both, really. I mean, to answer your question, we've had students come from a completely different industry and profession. We had 2 students that just came through. They're still our students. They were aeronautical engineers.
Oh, wow.
Both of them. Yeah, and they saw some NASA footage or something in 3D, and they saw it and they're like, that's what we want to do. So they were totally the people that made the left turn. They're based in Spain. They're wonderful.
Oh, wow.
And within a year of our program, they said they saw something, they wanted to do it. They're like, we want to be lighters as aeronautical engineers. And within a year after our program, they both got jobs as lighters at an animation company in Spain. And it was amazing. Great. So that's one. We have many people that will totally pivot from a different industry. And then, yeah, we have some people that come from, or either like maybe straight out of school or in school and finding that they're struggling to, get their foot in the door, and they realize they're real, maybe probably like they didn't learn the right things, kind of how we've experienced too, that's not helping them get into the industry, and we help them that way. And then we have people that are in the industry, let's say, but maybe they are modelers or in a different part of the pipeline that want to learn more about lighting. And we do have lighters too. We often get messages from current lighters like, how much will I get out of this if I'm already a lighter in the industry? And I say quite a lot, actually, especially depending on where you are. I will say, especially between commercials and VFX work versus feature animated film work, it's a very different thing. And even when I came in with over 6 years of experience from VFX and commercial work into feature animation, I learned so much more about just like the foundations and everything, because feature animation is where like you really can perfect the art form, and I've learned so much. And that was after like 6 years of experience that, you would think I don't need to learn anymore. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so kind of begs one of my other questions, which is would this course suit people who wanted to take it back to VFX or perhaps even gaming, or is it primarily, your focus is obviously on feature animation lighting?
I think anyone can benefit from it. It is catered to feature animation. That being said, what we teach is universal. So I think it would help even if you're doing VFX. Definitely gaming. I think gaming it's its own thing, but you still need to know the foundation.
And what would you say is the difference between a good lighting artist and a great lighting artist?
Ooh. That's a hard one. So a good lighter, I will say, is one that can, a good lighter from the standard of like a studio is someone that can take a shot from start to finish in a way that addresses the director's notes, right? That's a good lighter. It's someone that can just do the job. What makes a great lighter, I think, is someone that does that plus takes on the initiative to add that extra step. Like, let's say, and makes it a conversation with the director. So instead of just taking on the notes and kind of saying, okay, and going back, hitting the notes, coming back, maybe, I've seen this where they get a note, and instead of, maybe they'll come back and then they'll say, oh, while I was working on this, I had a great idea. What if we did this, and this will really emphasize what we're trying to do? And then they'll pull up an alternative. So they have a version where they hit the note, and then they have another version where they're like, oh, and then I did this extra thing that I think would be great. And more times than not, the director will be like, oh my God, it's amazing. I didn't even think about that. So it makes it more like a collaborative thing where the lighter is actually extending and putting more input into it than just taking a note and putting it back. So I think that's what makes a great lighter, when they take the initiative to really look at something and see like, how can I push this to the next level even more than what the director asked for.
That's a great tip, and I think it's one that works for people in every department. Great. I don't think either of us have actually mentioned, so it's entirely online, although we've called it a venue, but so you can do it from anywhere. And it's also broken down into modules, so you don't have to sign up for the entire thing if you think you just want to focus on character lighting or environment lighting. And is everything taught by you and Mike?
Yes, everything for the feature, for the lighting for feature animation are taught by Mike and myself. We do have some guest lecturers
Oh, cool.
sometime. Like, for example, we have a course that I teach, succeeding, getting and succeeding in the industry. And it's kind of like a post course where it helps you from, applying to like even like what to wear on the interview and how to, like, those things that no one ever talks about, and even to negotiating. And we have, for example, a guest speaker on that course from Columbia.
Oh, wow.
A professor from Columbia that her focus is on how to best negotiate.
That's
for
amazing.
your job.
So what faculty does she work at in Columbia?
She's in the business, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. So I saw that professional skills module on your site, and I was really pleased to see that, because I've just added something similar to the course that my husband and I teach, which is drawing, like, it's introduction to drawing for animation, but it's for underprivileged teens. So we offer it sort of pro bono. And just last year we introduced exactly the same thing, like a day worth of like how to negotiate, like what to wear to an interview, how to behave professionally, because it's not offered at any level of education, and it's stuff that is really vital, that kind of soft skill side of stuff that takes you a long time to learn, and often by the time you learned it, it's too late.
Yeah, it's totally true. I agree with you. It's like one of those it's like really important, but no one knows. And then exactly the way you learn is through really expensive mistakes, right?
Exactly.
Or like
very, very hard mistakes.
Like you, we're probably like trying to save our students and people from making those hard mistakes so they don't have to go through it. And then you're right, when we were designing our academy, we strategically made it all online, all the courses online and on demand, because we understood that people are coming from different places in the whole entire world, and we wanted to we made it a point that we wanted to offer this to everyone, no matter what their location, because we found that with traditional education, if they don't live in the right city or they don't have the time, it makes it really hard for them to advance to learn. So that's why we did that, so they can learn at their own pace whenever they want, and then we have the direct feedback, so they can get like the best of both worlds, and they can really cater their education to what they want and not have to be tied to a schedule or the stress that goes into that.
Awesome.
So yeah,
cool. It's maybe a good point to also do a sidebar on your experiences as a woman in the industry, because one thing that comes up so many times is the kind of glass ceiling and the fact that women aren't so good at negotiating for themselves. I often think we'd be better at negotiating for each other. If we went and said, I think Sally should be earning this, we'd probably get better results. But how has your experience, how has it been, and has it changed a lot over the years in terms of the maybe extra effort that you have to put in to do well in the industry as a woman? Or what advice would you give to girls trying to crack into the industry? Yeah,
so I would say, going back to the fact that my husband calls me an introvert that has learned to be an extrovert, I actually I agree with him, and I think I kind of know it's because I went into this industry. So when I say that I'm an introvert, like I'll give you a perspective. In kindergarten, I was so shy that I didn't speak out loud for the whole year. Like, I'd have to go up to my teacher, whisper in her ear. Like, I refused to speak out loud. And I was just like really quiet. And all through college, I was just that very quiet person. And when I got into this industry, I still remember my first job at Rhino Effects. There was probably maybe 2 other women, and usually they're like producers, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's true.
What happened was, I was thrown into this male-dominated environment, and it actually got me out of my shell, because I was forced to be more talkative in a way. I don't know if that makes sense, but not that, well, I will say this, the people in the industry, even though they're male dominated, are amazing. Like, that's what I love being in this industry so much. And I guess the advice I would give to women is to be social in a way where, like, when you go to your first job, I think it's very easy to just, like, kind of hide in the corner and be really intimidated. But one, I found artists in this industry, male or female, are great people. And, like, once you engage with them, they're really nice, they're really helpful, and they're really kind. It's not like a competitive type of feel at all from what I've experienced. And it all depends on personality too, but when it came to negotiating, I think this is where my econ degree comes into play. Because I still remember in this one econ class that there was like a graph that said the number that you come in at for your first job or your first job in that company will dictate your entire career.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Company. So you have to fight hard for that first salary.
Yeah.
And I remember that, and that's exactly what I did for each job. So my recommendation for each first job that you get in the company, you can't just take you have to fight for it. Because think of it this way, if you come at this certain salary, you're only going to be able to incrementally scale. So once you're in there, so exactly. You have to fight. The hardest fight is that first fight.
With the exception maybe of your first internship, in which case it might not be a great idea to negotiate too hard.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's where you don't have leverage. The best scenario, which I've had the scenario, and it's a dream scenario, you get 2 job offers at the same time.
Oh, wow.
And you
play them off against each other.
You compete. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. And it's like amazing. It's like, well, this could do that. Yeah. And I mean, the draw of that is you have to be willing to go to either one. Like,
yes.
But you still can use them, off each other, and that's probably the best scenario. Yeah. But yes, you're right. The first job you might not have as much leverage, and in that way, I would say, and I've seen this from experience, if your priority is to, because it's different priorities, right? If your priority is to increase your salary, let's say, what you would need to do is you would have to leave that first job.
Yeah.
And come back maybe. Because that's the way, and I've seen it happen where people come in at the entry level and like incrementally as, they go up, but they might be there for 20 years and their salary doesn't reflect that because they started at such a low rate. And some people end up being really bitter about it, right? So
especially when they find out what other people are earning, which is what bosses are usually trying to avoid.
Exactly. So I'd say, like, if your priority is to, like, if you love it there and you're okay, that's your, like, you found the studio you want and you're going to be a lifer, then that's your priority. Be okay with that. If your priority is to kind of like rise economically in your salary, your move I would suggest would have to be to leave at some point, and then you can come back, and then you'll be at a different negotiating point if that's your goal. So it all depends on what your goal is.
Yeah, I think that kind of power move is what men are better at as well. I don't know. I think women lack the confidence to really, to say, yes, I am playing you off against each other and that's my right. Or to say, yes, I am leaving and perhaps I'll come back. But, not to feel bad or like a betrayal and to just, realize that business is business and to not let anybody make you feel bad. I feel like men are a little bit better at that, generally speaking, than women because we're maybe a bit, I guess, more socially driven. So we'll be taking a lot of other people's egos into account instead of our own best interest.
Yeah, I guess my advice to that is, because you're right, because women are like, they want to please and they don't usually want to be confrontational about things. I guess my advice is when you're doing your own negotiating, think of it, kind of step away and think about how you would advise your friend, right? If this wasn't you personally, like kind of basically what you said, we should negotiate for each other, right? What if you kind of stepped away and you were like, okay, if this was not me personally and I was looking at this as my friend, how would I go about this? Would I be more aggressive? Would I ask for, this. And one of the biggest things I like to do when I'm negotiating is I like to back it up with, like you take your time, like don't feel the need that you need to say anything on the spot. When I get the first offer, I usually like kind of take a pause and bring it back and think about it and then think of the counter. But the most important thing, I think this would help women too, is when you give your counter, each thing has a specific reason to it. It's a factual, it's like maybe like, you're asking me to move, and the lifestyle, the what's it called, the expense, or
cost of living,
quality of life, the cost of living there is more expensive, or like you back it up with very concrete things, and it will help your argument first of all, but it also will help you feel confident in asking for it, and taking that time and thinking of like, what do I really deserve, But I think also if they do their research too, by looking at comparable people in that position and seeing what they make, then you could say, then it will give you more strength too, to be like, okay, this is what actual people are making. I should make that too. Yeah. So, and I'm a big advocate of like if you think your number is, I don't know, like 100, right? Then you should ask for 110.
Right.
Because it's a negotiation, right? So most likely if they're offering you 90, but your point is 100, go back with 110.
Exactly.
And then you'll have that discussion and be like, okay, maybe 100, and then there's a compromise there.
Yeah.
So that's also a tip, I would say.
I've been watching Billions, and the main character said something that really stayed with me, which is nobody leaves a negotiation happy. So that should be what you have in mind. And I just love that, because you often feel like you've done something wrong when you get the salary that you want, but it's also not quite what you wanted. But a negotiation in which nobody leaves happy is one that's gone well. So I really like that point. Yeah. The other lesson that I think I read in a negotiation book is always try and get the other guy to say a number first. And it can sometimes be super hard because they'll also be asking, but it's all like a dance. So to find out what their number is puts you in a position of power.
That is so true. I still remember one person, she just said to me, she's like, can you just tell me the least amount that you would accept? And I was like, what kind of question was that? I just kind of laughed. And I think I responded and was like, well, will you tell me the highest number that you'll offer me? Like, because I thought it was just so comical. But it's true. It's like, to see their hands is a huge thing, because that's like where you can gauge it.
And it might be more than you were going to ask for, and you will never know that if you don't try and get them to make the first move. So
true.
Just to go back a little bit about how you're saying you're more comfortable with guys having worked in the industry for a while. They haven't been totally untouched by the Me Too movement, as you know, and I was wondering if you'd sensed any kind of shift, or I guess it could be an improvement just in culture, or has it just made everybody a lot more nervous on how to deal with each other?
Yeah, the culture at work is pretty good for men to women, I will say. And I will say what is really great about having women kind of the minority at work is the women at work kind of pull together. Like, we have women-only Slack channels, right? That people can ask things. And in the bathrooms, it started last year or two, like, they started this movement where, like, every day they would put a Post-it up with motivational quotes, like female motivational quotes, to, like, rev you up.
That's great. And it sounds like women are kind of pulling together, which means there's enough of you to be a force to be reckoned with. Since we're talking about the culture at Blue Sky, did you want to maybe tell us a little bit about what it's like working there? Especially things have probably changed a lot since the Disney acquisition last year, I guess. So you've been there a while already, so tell us what it's like at the moment.
Well, that's an interesting question. Blue Sky's been in an interesting position for the past, and this is only for me, my personal, this doesn't speak for anyone at Blue Sky. For the Disney acquisition, it was a huge thing, right? So and it was announced a long time ago now. I forget, maybe 3 years ago. So ever since the announcement, people have been a little on edge for when anything happens, when, companies merge or are bought out and whatnot. So the studio, it's definitely gone through its changes, and it's still going through changes. I will say that throughout it all, we were able to release Spies in Disguise, which I think, story-wise and look-wise, it was amazing. And especially if we think about everything that was going on during this time, the transitions, the acquisitions, the changing of guards in a way, that the studio really worked together as a team and as artists to pull it together. And as we speak, things are still adjusting. And right now, with the coronavirus, that's another hiccup in things where, we're working from home. Today is the first day that we're working from home, and that's going to be a whole different thing. And that may also change how we work in the future, right? It's always evolving. I will say the best part about Blue Sky are the people. And the people are amazing, they're strong, and I love just interacting with the people there.
That's great. Is there a lot, do you think there's a lot more space at kind of entry level now that there seems to be such a huge boom in content because of the streaming platforms? And I'd heard that that's a focus for Blue Sky under Disney. So are you seeing a lot of growth at the moment, I suppose?
Yeah, I can't speak for Blue Sky specific. I'm not that information I just don't have. But I will say in general, and we tell this to our students as well, that it is a great time to get into the industry because of all the streaming, because of all the new content that's going to need to come out, that it's a really good time to get into the industry because there's going to be a lot of need for content and artists.
You can check out Jasmine and Mike's school at academyofanimatedart.com. If you sign up for any of their courses, ASA listeners will receive some bonus content, so do send them an email to learn more. I'm Julia Smuts Louw, wishing you good luck and lots of creative inspiration for the rest of lockdown. Stay safe and wash your hands and your keyboard. It's worse than a toilet seat. No, really it is. Look it up.